Arsenal are supposed to be a big club. We're now out of every competition. Let's not kid ourselves. We're not going to score 3 goals at Bayern Munich. We're out of every competition. I don't think we're going to come fourth. I don't think we're going to meet the Champions League mark that Wenger has always said is his great achievement, as if somehow coming fourth is what a club like Arsenal should be aiming for. I want to have a mentality of a Mourinho or a Ferguson where actually you want to win things. And I don't speak for all Arsenal fans. It's a very passionate issue. Many of them don't agree with me. Many of them agree with me. I speak for myself. I'm a season ticket holder, have been for a very long time. I've followed Arsenal for 42 years. I'm a shareholder, and I'm entitled to my opinion. And my opinion is Arsene Wenger should resign. And he should do it now so that we have a chance of reinvigorating the team with a possibility, and it's no more than that, the way Chelsea and Spurs are looking for the rest of the season. It's a possibility we could come fourth and qualify for the Champions League. Because if we don't, then we are not going to be able to sign any top-class players this summer. It is as simple as that. And this is the reality moment for Arsenal fans. Do they have confidence that Arsene Wenger is going to get us that last Champions League place with this team playing the way they are? Or do they share my view that he's run his course? And you can still admire and respect Arsene Wenger and still like him as a man and think he's done an amazing job, but also recognise the bleeding obvious, which is that he has run his course.
And that's all well and good, Piers, but, then even if he went, you'd have to address who comes in next. And you've mentioned 2 people there, Mourinho and Ferguson. Well, Ferguson, as we all acknowledge, is a complete one-off. The likelihood of getting another Ferguson is pretty much nil. And Mourinho, for all his success, and let's not quibble, he has had amazing success. He can be a one-man wrecking ball for clubs. So what would you'd
I
want?
think we need a one-man wrecking ball. We need to shake this club to its foundations. We need to forget this ridiculous situation we're now in, where apparently having a nice stadium is all that matters. I'd go back to Highbury tomorrow. That's where we won all these trophies under Wenger. That's where we were intimidating. That's where we had a team like Bayern Munich tonight of tall, powerful, skillful, aggressive football players playing as a hunting pack unit. Arsenal looked weak, we looked small, we looked insignificant. For the last 8 years, Wenger has replaced all the invincibles within a year and a half with people half the size who are skillful, but who do not appear to have the fight in them, with the exception, and I always would say this, of someone like Jack Wilshere, don't have the fight in them to win things or to respond when we go 2-0 down like tonight. The old invincibles, I would have given us a chance, even at 2-0 down. Not this team. And you've got to blame Wenger. He's the manager. Nothing happens at Arsenal Football Club without Arsene Wenger sanctioning it. This idea that somehow it's Stan Kroenke or it's Ivan Gazidis, who's been a disaster anyway, that is them calling the shots. Forget it. The reality for Arsenal fans is to ask this question of yourselves. Do you think the old Arsene Wenger that competed so brilliantly with Manchester United would have ever sold our best football player, Robin van Persie, to Manchester United, gifting them the league as we did, as Arsene Wenger personally did when Alex Ferguson rang him repeatedly to persuade him? And by the way, how many calls would it take for Wenger to try and get Wayne Rooney out of Manchester United? The answer is 1 million, and then try a few more.
Not many.
He would never do it.
Not many, Piers. Hang on, Piers.
Who has lost his competitive edge.
Well, not many calls if he wanted to come to Arsenal, which is apparently what happened with Van Persie. That's the difference.
Van Persie was under contract. We sold him for 24 million.
But for a fact, when a player wants to go, then it's very difficult to keep hold of him.
He's under contract. We could have kept him for another year, and people say, well, then he could have gone on a free. So what? We sold him for 24 million, and you make 25 million for qualification for the Champions League. It's a dead draw. We make nothing out of Van Persie if we don't qualify for the Champions League. What
just strikes me as odd is that you've quoted tonight that you want a kind of a Ferguson mentality, and yet you have a man here who's trying to build a dynasty. All right, you've had 7 lean...
He's not building a dynasty. We're getting worse.
Well, hang on, though. Yeah, you've had some lean years, but you call lean. I mean, I support Burnley. You've had... How many years running have you been in the Champions League? It's hardly lean. And also, Piers, I would just say...
Who cares about qualifying for a competition you never win? I mean, seriously, who cares?
Well, if it means as much as you say that this year could be critical if you don't, then it means a lot.
I'm pointing out that the mathematical equation that is put to us by Wenger and Gazidis, that somehow this was good business, is clearly palpable nonsense. If you sell a guy for 24 million, but you don't qualify for a tournament that makes you 25 million, There's no point in it. And if we'd kept Van Persie, and if we'd spent this huge war chest of cash that we now apparently have on 3 or 4 world-class players, not just good players, world-class players, then we could have been contesting now to win things, and Van Persie would have wanted to stay. But he didn't. We let him go. We sold him to Manchester United. And they're now 21 points ahead of us in the league. And people can keep making excuses for Wenger. And they can keep saying that he will come good. But 8 years, can you imagine? Alex Ferguson said recently that he would have been gone after 5 trophyless years at Manchester United in the modern climate. And he's absolutely right. We've now gone 8 years with nothing. And this is the worst season we've had under Wenger.
All right.
More than that, we've sold our 2 best players the last 2 summers. We are a selling club. We're going backwards. And Arsenal fans need to realise this, thank him for his great service, and get a new manager in who can make us competitive again.
What's the guarantee? Piers, you may have inside information that I don't, but what's the guarantee that a new manager will be able to spend this so-called transfer fund that's waiting in the wings?
Well, there's this preposterous notion that somehow no other manager can do better than Wenger. Who else could do better than somebody who at the moment has been bounced out of both domestic competitions by non-Premiership teams, by somebody who's just been thrashed at home by Bayern Munich, and by somebody who's 6th in the league and probably won't qualify for the Champions League? I'm not sure it's that difficult for somebody to come into Arsenal with the kind of cash reserves we now are milking from this flash new stadium of ours and do a little bit better than that. Wenger was a brilliant manager. He was the best we've had. He is not the same man now. Tactically, he's all over the place. Tonight, who would put Cazorla on the right wing? Who would look at Bayern Munich's midfield and think, I know how we're going to compete with that. We're going to put Aaron Ramsey in the middle. It's a complete farce. This is a man who spent £6 million on Andre Santos, one of the worst players I've ever seen in an Arsenal shirt. We are not a competitive team anymore. We have Jack Wilshere, who is, in my view, the only player in the Arsenal squad who will get into Bayern Munich's team or their bench. I mean, they had Robin on the bench. A player that would walk into our team.
I'm minded to talk briefly, Piers, about Aston Villa, for example. They had Martin O'Neill. He left that club, and the fans thought a bright new future heralded, and look where they are now. And you hear it now with Stoke City fans as well, who are saying, look, we've had enough of the way Pulis plays the game.
Tony, with respect, you're not talking about teams that have the same expectancy.
No, I'm not. But
Arsenal. And it's not to denigrate them, but Arsenal have been a trophy-winning team for a very long time.
Yeah, but Piers, my point was this:
a big club and have a stadium which is supposed to be that of a big club.
Yeah,
at the moment, we're not a big club. We're a mid-table club.
My point was this, Piers: be careful what you wish for.
Well, I wish for success, and we haven't had any for 8 years. I'm not sure how it gets much worse. We have a lot of money. I don't think that Kroenke's been any good for Arsenal. I think he is silent Stan. Apparently he was there tonight, but if he was, that's the first game I've seen him at for a very long time. I think Gazidis only cares about making money. We charge the highest prices for tickets. We have the highest paid manager, and we are delivering, in my view, substandard football for a team that wants to demand the kind of prices that we charge for tickets. I went to the FA Cup game on Saturday, and there were thousands of empty seats. Arsenal fans have had enough of this. And I totally understand the romantic, rose-tinted view of Wenger, that he did so many brilliant things for us, that it's a really, really hard call now to do this. But we've got to remember, it's not Wenger Football Club. It's Arsenal Football Club. We were great before Wenger, and we can be great again. But we have to have the courage to look at what is happening to this club and understand that Manchester United fans have gone from not just not feeling sorry for us, they don't even laugh at us anymore. They just think we're irrelevant. That is how far we've come in the last 8 years.
The difficulty, Piers, is that I doubt he'll walk away, and I doubt the board will sack him. So what it's going to boil down to is that really the Arsenal fans are going to have to hound him out.
Yeah, well, Arsenal fans are going to have to make their views very loudly and very clearly known. And I hope Arsene Wenger listens to the fans, and I hope he does the right thing, and he resigns. And Arsene Wenger should go and have another challenge. He's probably got one left in him. Go to another club. He keeps boasting about being offered all these jobs elsewhere. Go and prove us wrong. Go and prove my instinct wrong, which is that he's no longer a top-flight manager. Because we need somebody at Arsenal who doesn't look at the changing marketplace of Chelsea and Manchester City and the others and thinks we can't compete, so we won't even bother. Manchester United have had the same debt issues. They've had stadium rebuilding issues and so on. But they've managed to stay a winning team. And that is down to Alex Ferguson. Alex Ferguson is a winner. And he's not somebody that I would invite to a desert island for the rest of my life, and I'm sure he wouldn't invite me. But I can respect and absolutely admire the man's unbelievable desire to win.
Okay.
And I think he, if he'd been at Arsenal, would have won trophies in the period that Wenger hasn't. And that is the tragedy that Arsenal fans have to wake up and face up to.
So final question then. Let's set the parameters for any new applicant for this job. Obviously, finishing in the top 4 for several years on the bounce is not good enough. What should they achieve in your eyes?
Well, success. I mean, people say who could
what
come
does
in.
That, what is that?
What about the Bayern Munich manager? He's leaving Bayern Munich. Guardiola's going there. He's apparently rethinking his desire to retire. He's one of the great managers of modern football history. I would go and give him an open check. He's 4 years younger than Alex Ferguson. Let's get him in there. If we can't get him, let's get Klopp from Borussia Dortmund. He's done a fantastic job. There are plenty of opportunities and options for Arsenal. And this idea that only Wenger can get us out of this appalling situation we find ourselves in is complete nonsense.
But where does it end, Piers? Because Roberto Mancini's won the title at City. Now he's second and he's being hounded.
Well, Manchester City is a completely different ballgame. There you have a billionaire Arab sheikh who will only ever want Premier League after Premier League after Premier League. But I look at somebody like Abramovich, for example, who I keep being told has been a bad example because he's been through 9 managers, whatever it is. Look at the number of trophies he's won. Chelsea fans have got no right to be anything but deliriously happy with that man. He has brought them incredible success after years of abject failure. I would take Abramovich tomorrow. We have an Abramovich waiting in the wings. He's called Usmanov. He's got buckets of cash. He goes to most of the games. He's very friendly with David Dein. We haven't won a single thing since David Dein left Arsenal. David Dein was the man that made things happen with Wenger. Wenger, as anyone who knows the inside track at Arsenal will tell you, cannot make a decision about players. We've missed many top players in the last few years because he hasn't had David Dein to finish that. Gazidis wouldn't know one good player from another. So we're in a situation which has to have dramatic change. And we have a number of options in terms of potential managers or ownership, but it will have to be driven by Arsenal fans. And I appeal to them. Stop looking at Wenger through these romantic, nostalgic glasses. He's won nothing for 8 years. We've had a series this season of abject, miserable nights, losing to non-Premier teams in the cup competitions, thrashed at home by Bayern. We're nowhere near Manchester United. Let's compete again.
So listen,
let's get real. Let's get a new manager.
If the fans start singing Wenger out at the next home game, if you're there, you'll join in.
I hope it doesn't come to that.
But you would join in if it started.
I hope he stands down and we can pay due respect for the amazing job he's done. But if he stays in the job and we continue to perform at this very poor level by the standards that he himself set, then eventually he has to be judged in the same way any manager of a top team in the world would be judged. No one can tell me that if a manager at Juve or Inter Milan or AC Milan or Real Madrid or
I understand that, Piers.
went 8 years without a trophy, he'd be still in a job.
But if he doesn't stand down, you're saying the fans should begin to call for his head?
I think the fans who are paying the highest ticket prices in Britain to the highest paid manager are perfectly entitled to express their opinion, which at the moment, judging by the reaction around me when I was there at the weekend, is increasingly one of we need change.